You sit there in the dark, wearing your expectation of help like a badge of patience. You tell yourself that waiting for a savior, for the perfect mentor, the supportive partner, or the lucky break is a natural human necessity. You believe that your paralysis is just a temporary transition, but you are lying to yourself. What you call hope is actually a slow-acting psychological sedative. The exact moment you allow yourself to believe that someone is coming to reach down and pull you out of the dirt, you sign a silent contract with your own weakness. You give your mind permission to stay soft, to remain lazy, and to bleed its raw, vital energy into a fantasy of rescue. The belief that you cannot survive without a safety net is a self-inflicted cage. But when you are forced to confront the absolute silence of your isolation, when you look into the dark and realize with absolute freezing certainty that there is no rescue party coming, the illusion shattered. And in that vacuum, a brutal, high-speed evolution begins. In the year 1519, when the Spanish commander Hernán Cortés landed his small, heavily outnumbered force on the hostile and uncharted shores of Veracruz, he did not give his men a standard speech of encouragement. He did not offer them a safety net. Instead, he took away their only exit strategy. He ordered his men to burn their own ships. As the wooden hulls turned to ash and sank into the sea, the men realized a terrifying reality. There was no turning back. There was no rescue. There was no retreat. By physically destroying the ships, Cortés didn't just eliminate a transit route, he violently slaughtered the psychological option of failure. He forced his men's brains to stop leaking energy into the comforting fantasy of returning home. When there is no ship to carry you back to safety, your mind undergoes a sudden, spectacular mutation. It stops begging for a savior, shuts down all unnecessary emotional noise, and diverts every single calorie of its processing power into raw, immediate, and unshakable self-reliance. The supported path, the one with safety nets, gentle encouragement, and hand-holding, only breeds a comfortable, hollow stagnation. It allows you to crawl toward independence at a snail's pace because you never actually have to carry the crushing weight of your own existence. Absolute abandonment is a deadly, beautiful gift. It is a brutal forge. By stripping away your ships, the universe stops treating you like a fragile child and demands that you become a force of nature. You are no longer waiting for someone to build a bridge across your abyss. You are being forced to grow wings on the way down. But to understand how this forced survival begins to carve out a permanent, unyielding identity from the raw clay of your mind, we must look at how a genuine personality is actually constructed, and why comfort is the ultimate architect of your mediocrity. Let's diagnose the fundamental error of modern self-development. You have been taught to treat the search for identity as a luxury. You are told that who you are is a delicate flower waiting to bloom under the right nurturing conditions. You are encouraged to seek out comfort, to minimize stress, and to surround yourself with supportive scaffolding. But biology does not care about your self-actualization. Biology cares about adaptation. The human psyche is an adaptive mechanism that operates on a strict budget of metabolic energy. It is inherently efficient, which means it is inherently lazy. It will never expend the agony to build what it can borrow for free. If you are held up by the scaffolding of a comfortable environment, if your identity is supported by your parents' wealth, your partner's constant reassurance, or your social circle's polite validation, your brain treats this as a permanent biological reality. It looks at the external support and makes a calculated executive decision. Why expend the brutal energy to grow an internal skeletal structure when you are already cradled by external steel? As a result, your development stops. The supported path does not produce individuals. It produces hothouse flowers, beautiful, pristine, and completely generic copies of the environment that feeds them. They have no hard edges, no distinct boundaries, and no defense mechanisms. They are entirely dependent on the gardener's schedule, and they are one storm away from absolute annihilation. The complete, terrifying absence of an external structure is not a tragic, empty void. It is a high-pressure evolutionary chamber. It is the only environment where the brain is violently stripped of its borrowed foundations and forced to secrete its own structural support. Your authentic self is not a hidden treasure you find by going to a spa or sitting on a retreat. A genuine personality is psychological scar tissue. It is the hard, protective barrier that forms only when your soft, naive expectations of the world are repeatedly crushed against raw, unyielding reality. and you have no safety net to cushion the blow. You do not become a distinct, unshakable individual by choice. You are forced to become one when remaining soft means your immediate psychological death. Most of what you call your confidence is a parasite. It is a psychological illusion built entirely on rented land. You walk through the world with your chest out, convinced that your self-assurance is generated from deep within your own chest. You believe you are strong because you have a steady paycheck, a circle of friends who laugh at your jokes, and a social network that nods in polite agreement with your worldview. But you are lying to yourself. You are not generating confidence. You are simply feeding on other people's permission to exist. Your self-worth is nothing more than external validation that has been dripped into your psychological bloodstream for so long that you've mistaken it for your own blood. This is the trap of the persona, the social mask Carl Jung identified as our forced compromise with the demands of society. When you live too long in comfortable, supported environments, your ego completely fuses with this mask. You develop what is known as the inherited self. It is a beautifully crafted, highly functional identity built for you by your parents, your peers, and your institutions. It feels real, it looks real, but it is entirely hollow. It is a costume worn so tightly that the fabric has begun to graft itself directly onto the raw flesh of your face. In Being a Nothingness, Sartre described the concept of mauvaise foi, or bad faith. He observed a waiter in a Parisian cafe whose movements were a little too precise, a little too quick, a little too eager to please. The man was not simply serving coffee, he was playing the role of a waiter. Sartre realized that most human beings are terrified of their own raw, unvarnished freedom, and so to escape the anxiety of choice, they flee into a socially constructed identity. They play the role of the good citizen, the successful executive, or the confident friend so perfectly that they forget they are putting on a show. You have become an actor who has forgotten the play is fiction, and the tragedy of this inherited self is that it works perfectly. Until the lights go out. When you are cast out into the vacuum, when you have no mentors to guide you, no friends to validate you, and no safety nets to catch you, the feedback loop is violently severed. The mirrors are shattered. The audience has left. And in that absolute silence, your inherited self begins to starve. Without constant external confirmation to feed it, the mask rots. Within weeks of true isolation, the borrowed confidence evaporates, leaving behind a shivering, terrified child who has no idea who they are when there's no one around to look at them. But this psychological death is the most critical checkpoint of your life. Because to survive the decay of the mask, you must learn to navigate the silent territory of your own mind. You must learn the brutal difference between the trap of loneliness and the weapon of solitude. Most people who find themselves cast out into the vacuum do not survive it. They do not survive it because they mistake the silence for a threat. The moment the external noise of the world stops, their mind begins to panic. They feel a clawing, desperate emptiness in their chest, and they mistake this feeling for a disease. They call it loneliness. But loneliness is not a condition of being alone. Loneliness is the violent, exhausting friction of resisting the silence. It is the sound of a psyche that is still begging for a savior. When you are lonely, you are physically isolated, but your mind is still frantically reaching outward, desperately searching the dark for a hand to hold, a text to receive, or a voice to validate your existence. Your mind is trapped in an echo chamber, screaming for rescue, and the panic you feel is the energy of your own ego trying to escape itself. Loneliness is the posture of a victim, but there is a cold, calculated threshold where the victim dies and the architect is born. It happens when you stop clawing at the dark. It happens when you make the conscious, ruthless decision to stop looking outward for an escape hatch and instead turn your entire focus inward. This is the transition from loneliness to solitude. Solitude is not a circumstance. It is an aggressive, intentional orientation of the soul. It is the conscious choice to step into the dark territory of your own mind and declare ownership over it. In solitude, you stop treating your own company as a tragedy. You stop waiting for someone to complete you, to understand you, or to validate your struggle. You accept the silence not as a grave, but as a sanctuary. In the classic masterpiece, Letters to a Young Poet, Rilke did not offer comforting words to soothe the agony of isolation. Instead, he commanded us to run directly into it. He wrote, what is necessary after all is only this: solitude, vast inner solitude, to walk inside oneself and meet no one for hours. That is what we must be able to attain. To Rilke, deep isolation was not a curse to be lifted, but a vast, silent room. He understood that every time you flee your isolation to seek external confirmation, you dilute your values and soften your edges just to pay the tax of social acceptance. But when you embrace the vastness of your own inner room, the external noise is violently severed. Your suffering is never caused by the objective circumstance of being alone. It is caused by your desperate, frantic refusal to stop clinging to the ghost of external validation. But this absolute freedom is not comfortable. It is a terrifying, gravity-defying state. Because when you remove the external pillars that have held up your identity for your entire life, the entire weight of your existence falls inward. Your ego is crushed under the pressure. And in that crushing pressure, a deep, ancient biological mechanism of the psyche is triggered, forcing a quiet, spectacular miracle of psychological reconstruction to begin in the dark. Most self-help gurus speak of personal growth as if it were a pleasant weekend hobby. They tell you to find yourself, to align your chakras, and to gently seek out your inner child. They paint a picture of psychological integration that is soft, voluntary, and sweet, but they are lying to you to sell books. The human psyche does not integrate because it wants to. It integrates because it is cornered. Structural reorganization of the mind, individuation. It is the process by which a fractured, chaotic human being is forced to integrate their shadow, their repressed traumas, and their hidden potential to become a whole, unshakable individual. Individuation is not a journey you choose. It is a trap you are driven into by the sheer weight of your own suffering. And the primary trigger for this evolutionary trap is the absolute, suffocating absence of external support. As long as you have a safety net, as long as you have someone to call when things get dark, a shoulder to cry on, or a community to validate your fragility, your mind will remain lazy. It will keep its dark, unresolved shadows locked away in the basement, relying on external pillars to hold up the ceiling of your identity. But when those pillars are violently kicked away, the gravity of your existence falls entirely inward. The ceiling collapses, and in the pitch black, you are forced to face what is hiding in the basement. In the surreal world of Hermann Hesse's Steppenwolf, we watch this psychological collapse play out in real time. The protagonist, Harry Haller, is a deeply divided man, half civilized intellectual, half feral wolf. He spends his life agonizing over his isolation, trapped in the agonizing friction of resisting his own nature. He has lost his wife, his country, his respectability, and his social standing. Only when he is stripped of every single external structure, when he stands on the absolute precipice of suicide with absolutely no one to save him, do the doors of the magic theater of his own mind finally open. The sign on the door is clear: price of admission, your mind. Hesse's magic theater is not a physical place. It is a metaphor for the raw, unvarnished interior of the human psyche. It is a space where Harry Haller is forced to confront every shattered, warring fragment of his own soul, to play chess with the pieces of his personality, and to finally integrate the beast within him. But he was only allowed entry into this theater after he had been completely abandoned by the civilized world. Your isolation is the entry ticket to your own magic theater. When you have no one to save you, your mind stops playing superficial games. The survival mechanism of your subconscious is triggered. It forces a quiet, spectacular miracle of psychic gravity. It pulls your scattered, warring fragments together, forcing them to unite into a single, unshakable force. You do not choose wholeness, you are crushed into it. But this forced integration is exactly what society fears most, because a person who has had to crawl through the halls of their own mind alone, who has looked at their darkest shadows and integrated them into a weapon, is no longer malleable. They can no longer be controlled by the threat of isolation. And that is why society works so hard to keep you supported, comfortable, and fragile. Help is a slow poison. We live in a culture that worships collaboration, mentorship, and support networks. We are told that to go fast, you go alone, but to go far, you must go together. We are trained to seek out guidance, to demand safety nets, and to view assistance as an unalloyed good. But they never tell you the cost of the transaction. The truth is, external support does not make you strong. it merely hides your weakness. When you are supported, you do progress faster. If someone else carries your weight, you can climb higher. If a mentor solves your problems, you bypass the painful, grueling hours of trial and error. But this speed is an illusion. It is a structural speed trap. By outsourcing your struggles, you are outsourcing your stress tolerance. Your psychological muscles never undergo the hypertrophy of survival. You are walking on legs that have never had to carry the actual weight of your existence. And worse, the structure you lean on begins to dictate your shape. An external support system, whether it is a comfortable corporate job, a protective family, or a partner who manages your emotional turbulence, does not hold you up for free. It deforms you. To remain supported, you must compromise. You must soften your edges to fit into their mold. You must mute your instincts to maintain their peace. You become a parasite that has successfully adapted to its host. But a parasite cannot survive the death of the host. Every time you accept a safety net, you sign a silent contract. You trade your raw autonomy for their temporary stability. You are borrowing a foundation, and the universe always collects interest on that debt, and that interest is paid in the currency of fragility. What happens when the scaffolding is violently ripped away? What happens when the company downsizes, the partner leaves, or the mentor falls silent? The illusion of your progress evaporates in an instant. You do not just lose your support, you lose your balance. You realize that the towering identity you built was not a solid monument, but a hollow shell held up by external braces. When the braces go, the structure collapses under the gravity of its own emptiness. You are left standing in the ruins of a self you did not build. The only way to build a structure that cannot be broken is to build it in the absolute absence of a safety net. You must learn to hold your own weight when there is nothing else holding you up. This is the final checkpoint of your evolution, when you have been completely abandoned, when you have looked into the pitch black of your own life and realized that there is absolutely no one coming to save you. Something shiftless and permanent begins to crystallize inside your chest. You stop begging for a rescue, and instead you begin to build. An interior structure forged in the absolute vacuum of external support is built differently than anything society can construct for you. When you are forced to make high-stakes decisions with absolutely no one to validate them, your mind stops relying on the consensus of the crowd. You learn to weigh options in the cold silence of your own judgment. When you fail without a safety net, you do not have the luxury of a soft landing or a shoulder to cry on. You cannot escape the consequences, and so you are forced to do something incredibly rare in our comfortable modern world. You are forced to metabolize your own failure. You digest the humiliation, the pain, and the regret. You break them down in the gut of your own psyche and turn them into hard, dense psychological bone. This is the ultimate alchemy of the soul. When you have to sit with your deepest doubts in the dark, when you have to face the terrifying emptiness of your own existence without a single distraction or a comforting voice to reassure you, the fire of your insecurity eventually runs out of fuel. It burns itself out, and what is left standing in the ashes is a quiet, terrifying certainty. A self built with the bricks of external validation is a fragile house of cards. If the crowd stops clapping, the house falls. If your mentor criticizes you, your identity shatters. If your partner leaves, you dissolve. But a self forged in the absolute absence of a safety net is a monument. The world can no longer blackmail you with the threat of abandonment because you have already lived in the exile and conquered it. They can no longer threaten you with isolation because you have made the silence your sanctuary. You cannot break a person who has already survived their own collapse. Viktor Frankl survived the absolute void of the Nazi concentration camps, a place where every single external structure, every piece of clothing, every title, family member, and shred of human dignity was violently ripped away. He was left standing in the raw, freezing mud of existence with absolutely nothing. Yet, in that absolute vacuum of hope, Frankl discovered the core of human invincibility. In his masterpiece, Man's Search for Meaning, he documented the ultimate, unassailable threshold of human freedom. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. When you have absolutely nothing left to lean on, you discover the only foundation that can never be stolen, your own will. You do not need a savior. The belief that you are fragile, that you need a garden to grow, and that you cannot survive the cold vacuum of isolation is the ultimate illusion of a soft society. It is a lie designed to keep you dependent, malleable, and weak. The absence of support is not your execution, it is your initiation. It is the moment the universe stops treating you like a child and demands that you become a force of nature. Stop looking at the horizon for a ship to rescue you. Stop searching the dark for a hand to hold. The only person who is truly free in this world is the one who has looked into the abyss, realized that no one is coming, and decided that they no longer need them to.